Hello, girl. How are you, Sandra? Oh, I guess I did have to. Because I promised that we would give them one. So, yeah. Oh, I love that. I do. I come in and just share this with the. I like to just go and understand. From the boys and the studies. The big is hearing. So I brought. Yes, near-death experience. She's had a near-death experience, Sandra.
Oh, really?
And I was going to tell people about the, indicate on the China, we might want to then contact.
No, she's got a lot.
Oh,
I'm John. Are you capable of doing this? No, I learned it all. Okay, because I'm not, I got very little time.
I thought you were
I didn't have my new book completed yet, unfortunately, so it's probably gonna be done by December, I'm hoping.
So, can you see me pretty well?
Where can I put this? Can I put this here so I can kind of see it and can connect to it or no?
Do you wanna put it here?
Yes, that'll work.
Or you can even, we can move this over.
No, this is good. I like it right here.
All right.
Okay, maybe when we turn the projector on, we might move things around a
Yes,
little bit. to
we
get
may have to move it back.
Yeah.
Going we
I
will.
was reading a very long presentation last night, detailed, and my guys kept saying, I kept like feeling like, it's telling me I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
So I got here, I condensed it, and I was getting this, yeah, that's better.
Okay.
So I told them, if something happens technically, you want me to throw up the slides and just go, because when you do slides, you're kind of following intellectual. And I said, yeah, all right, so if something technical happens, I'm gonna throw out the presentation and just go off and go.
I like that.
Just wing it.
I like that plan B.
Okay.
Yeah, it is on. Should be fine. What do you think this is? Two?
That's microphone. That's a mic, that's a microphone.
I got my.
And I want you to, plan for, from about 3:10
Okay.
till about 4:10. We just need to start by 4:30. We need it by. But if you want to continue that, you don't have to. You wanted to.
I wanted to, yeah.
Okay, so you talk about, you got 14 for 15 then, but, so I'll ask some questions.
Okay, do we have a physical clock that's correct?
That one appears to be pretty.
2:44.
All right. So.
And then I got out of it, so I didn't have it. No. So anyway, so habit, I think you're helping me with that. So I go into it. Perfect. Okay, so John, there's another person. And, she was not all near from
I decided, Some of the stuff. At that point,
Well, she had their three. So, but that being said,
That's what I wanted to hear.
but it's okay, no big deal. We're gonna have a good time, I think. Got my assistant.
Got a.
Yeah, if we need to move to a laptop, we can do that.
Yeah, we do. I'm Mike.
Mike is my technical guru. He works out at
A
NASA.
guru I am not.
If he can work at NASA.
There we go. Download the clock, yeah, how about that? So,
That's perfect.
Guru I am not, but I do that. Hey, my clipper.
it's TMI slot? Yeah, I'm a tech geek, so.
You were in. Yeah, I wish I could, let you. Guys, the black folks, everybody's giving you.
And we took about a week coming out, we only drove about 100 people. Well, we came all the way from Jacksonville. Took us 7 days to drive from Jacksonville. Jacksonville, Texas.
There's probably a Jacksonville in every state.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, hey, Jacksonville, Florida, I think it's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Serena, I'm gonna send you.
Thank you so much.
I think I have your number. That'll give you the information. I think it. Oh.
Thanks to make.
Please feel free to come and check out the book, everyone. So these are all notifications, they got it, email. Oh, it's a handshake, all right. Oh, goodness. Yeah.
My sister.
Oh, laughing at the book.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what my clothes. I have two more books. Oh.
No, but I've read the books
I've read the book.
many, many times.
Yeah.
I-
Well, two or three books.
I've read them every time. Yeah.
I love your t-shirt. Oh. That's the funny thing about it, is all the people, I mean, I'm passionate about people. That all the people I know.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was passionate about the books long before the movie.
And the first time I read them, I remember thinking, oh, my God, they would make such a wonderful movie.
Yep.
We just didn't have a way to do it then.
Yeah.
And I swore I was going to be part of it, but wrong place.
We have about, 3 minutes before we begin. I'm waiting on, there's a group from Jupiter coming over. There's 4 of them. But in the meantime, for those of you that are new, and I think some of you are, we have, a wide range of books that you can check out. And they're not from the library, they're from our organization's library. And we welcome you to take them and, read them and pass them on if you'd like, or bring them back. And likewise, if you have some books at home that you've already read and you've learned about, if you'd like to donate them, we're now up to about 4 boxes. I don't make Mike haul them all in, but if you start checking them out, I'll make him bring all the boxes, and I've got more. I can fill another 5 or 6 boxes. So we have a lot of books, and they're so good. So many of them are very diverse. So you can find something I think that you'll love, and they're free to you. And if you want to bring them back, bring them back. If you need to keep them a couple of months, keep them a couple of months and then bring them back. Okay? I hope everyone got a ticket, a little red ticket. That's our, gift, drawing. So we want to give you a chance to get that. Again, I am waiting for a couple of minutes before we start. Just so that I don't repeat myself. Here she is. Hi, Cheryl. I don't know if you noticed on the sign-in sheet, but I did ask each person to indicate yes or no, whether you have had a near-death experience. And the reason I've asked you to do that is because you may or may not want to participate in one of 2 events that might come your way. And one is to be in a film. John Johnson is here and he is producing a film. And some of us have participated. David just participated. I've participated. Candy Drake has participated. There's been several that have. That's one way in which you might participate. And then in another way, you may reach out to David Schutz after he has his presentation. You may want to counsel with him because now he counsels near-death experiencers. So if you need questions answered or you're concerned about something that you experience, he might be a perfect person to reach out to. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and begin because there are people coming in and know who I am. You may not know who I am, but I hope everyone does. I'm Deb Davis. I'm the facilitator of the local chapter of, it's called Space Coast International Association for Near-Death Studies. We are under the umbrella of IANDS.org. IANDS.org is a not-for-profit organization that's international. And on their website, they have a tremendous amount of resources and near-death experiences and all kinds of things that you can go to and learn from. I just was able to go to the spring symposium via Zoom last Saturday. It was, hi, come on in. It was a day-long seminar online via Zoom. And it was basically about shared death experiences. We've not talked a lot about that in this group setting. We've not talked too much about anyone having a shared death experience. But what that means is you can have them either bedside or remote. Many times nurses and healthcare professionals and family members have actually been able to share a experience of their loved one transitioning from here to over the veil, through the veil, however you want to put it, to heaven. They've actually been able to share that experience with them. Some people say, well, it was remote in that they couldn't make it to their mother's bedside, but they actually they were sitting in their own home remotely, and they got a vision from their mother, or they got some sort of, it was like almost like a dream that their friend had died. And sure enough, a couple of days later, they find out that their relative died. Serena sort of talked about that a little bit when she talked about her son dying, and she reached out to a friend. That friend already knew it, and was then able to help Serena. So that's kind of a shared death experience. But I think that if you want to learn more about shared death experiences, you can go to IANDS and learn more. You can maybe even get that whole seminar if you'd like. I paid for it, it was like $60. But if you're a member, it's cheaper than if you're not a member. I encourage you to be a member of IANDS, I really do. Let's see. Next month will be our 3rd year anniversary in May. We've been having these meetings for 3 years now, and our friend and board member, Tom Leach, will be returning to share his near-death experience. He lives here. He also participated in John's film, upcoming film, I should say. So I'd like for you to come and celebrate our anniversary and this special guest speaker, Tom Leach. Now, David he's here with us, and I'll talk a little bit more about him, but he is gifting 2 of his books, and I love this book. It's God Took My Clothes. It's such a wonderful way to pull everything about near-death experiences into one source. I call it the near-death, I call it the Reader's Digest of near-death experiences, because he put it into topics, and I love that. So I can go to a topic and read what he's researched. And so I want to go ahead, did everybody get a little ticket? I want to give 2 of these away. Angie's gonna be Dana White today. Dana White. And our number, the last 3 numbers, look at the last 3. It's a long number, but look at the last 3. 599. Anyone? 599. Someone has it. Last 3 numbers. Yay, Lyman, great, you're the winner. Okay, let's do one more. One more. Dana, went on commercial. You have to get some better. Just kidding. All right, last 3 numbers, 597. 597. Yay, Cheryl. All right. Would you take this back to Lyman? He's in that pretty brown shirt. Okay. All righty. That is a great book, and we also have it in our library. David gave me this copy, and I put it in our library, but all of you should try to get it. You can get it on the Amazon if you'd like. Okay, so I'm a little curious. Please raise your hand if you have had a near-death experience. Please raise it really high. Look around, people. Look around. It's wonderful that you're here. And particularly today, I think you're gonna get so much information from David, of course. But I'm so glad you're here. And again, if you want to participate and talk with David later, I'm sure you can get his email address and he'll be happy to talk with you. And if you feel like you need a little bit of counseling and a little bit more understanding of this topic, meet with him. And then if you want to meet with John, we can give you his, I don't have his email address right with me today, but I can send it to you if you'd like. You have it. Yes, John, I hope you have it. Okay. Well, I have it, but it's, I can't give it to you right now. But anyway, do you want to say it, what it is?
Yeah, it's, John L. Johnson, but you have to spell Johnson, L-J-S-E-N,
Okay.
at Frontier.
Okay. John L. Johnson with an E. The Johnson is with an E.
That's one long word.
With long word. Okay. At Frontier.
At Frontier.
At frontier.com. Okay. All right. I had the pleasure, Mike and I, my husband is in the back there. Mike and I had the pleasure of going to dinner with David and Lydia last night. And I've been talking, and because of, I just want to interrupt myself. Because of Mary, stand up here. Because of Mary, we have now connected with David. And we connected with him a couple of years ago. And he came to us through Zoom, and he talked with us about his book and his research. But he's done more because he's that kind of guy. He just keeps researching and keeps learning and keeps talking to people. And it was so fun last night to meet up with he and Lydia. And I learned a couple of things I didn't know about him. I knew he was smart, and I knew he was a great researcher and seemed to know so much about near-death experiences, more so than almost anyone, even someone that's had a near-death experience, because he's talked to so many. But what I learned is that he's a fabulous translator. He translated everything I was saying, and you know how fast I talk. And then I was trying to talk with Lydia in very woman-to-woman conversation about babies and grandchildren, and he was just being wonderful in translating for her so that we could have this one-on-one conversation. So that was very impressive to me. That was probably the most impressive. Then all of a sudden, right as they get there, my earring falls out and it falls onto the table. And he goes, just a minute, I can fix that, I can fix that. He goes to his car, gets some epoxy glue, comes back, fixes it, puts it back in, and I'm all ready to go to gym. So anyway, he's got some hidden talents, I think. But his main talent really is his ability to research, and he's kept an open mind from the get-go. Well, maybe not from the get-go, but initially, but he may have had some qualms. He was searching like a lot of us. A lot of us were searching for more information, and he's done such a great job. And I want to welcome him and have him come up and tell us more about. I've sent you a lot of information about him, but I want him to tell a little bit too about his new book that's coming out. Let's see, the other 4 people came in. Great. I'm so glad you made it, Dr. Flora. Thank you for bringing your guests. All right, we are ready to meet David Suits. Give him a hand.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, in 2007, when YouTube was fairly new, I clicked on a YouTube video that changed my life. It was about an atheist who died, saw the afterlife, and returned. And at that time, I had been working at Southern California Gas Company as a mechanical engineer. And I was a Christian man, and I didn't believe in any of that stuff. And I had had training because I was kind of in a sales role. I'm a power plant engineer. And I had training on how to spot a lie. And this atheist who claimed to have seen the afterlife and gave his testimony on YouTube, he didn't show any of the signs of telling a lie. And that's what got me started. And I just want to see a show of hands. How many people were here for my Zoom talk? What was it, a year ago or something like that? All right, so a lot of people weren't. But in that talk, we went over a basic spirituality 101 of what the near-death experience is like. Today's talk is a little different. This is the Helix Nebula, and I kind of just put it up there as the first slide because it's a demonstration of how creative creation is and the beauty that's created. And there are no coincidences. So this was created, and I believe it's created. One of the reasons is someday they knew mankind was going to develop telescopes and be able to see this and call it the Eye of God Nebula. So the talk today is Beyond NDE, and it's kind of that was not supposed to happen. Supposed to come up one by one. All right, well, here's the whole talk, really. So it's a difficult presentation. And the reason is it's pretty easy to take 1,200 plus near-death experiences that I've heard in 17 years of research and summarize what they said. You know, they all talk about the love of heaven and that kind of thing, and it's a real easy thing to do. But when we talk a little beyond the NDE about things that are kind of out there, oddball stuff, the future and things like, you know, ET, the virtual ancient cultures, only a small portion of those testimonies talk about these things. For instance, the future. People ask about what's going on planet Earth, and maybe 30 or 40 testimonies out of 1,200 were shown bits and pieces of the future, and it's not really clear. So this is a real difficult presentation, and we're going into an area that I'm not completely comfortable talking about. I like talking about the basic stuff, but when you talk about stuff that's kind of out there, you kind of lose some people, you know. Some people throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I really think it takes a couple of things to learn and have great leaps in consciousness. And that is, you have to have some degree of intelligence, not a whole lot, I'm evidence of that. And you have to have an open mind, and that's the real key, because we have a long history of rejecting new ideas that seem crazy, don't we? Back in 1912, when Alfred Wegener first suggested the idea that continents were slowly drifting across the surface of the Earth, he was laughed at by the scientific community. It turned out to be a real thing, continental drift. In 1841, Richard Owen examined large bone and teeth fragments, speculating there were once giant lizards roaming the Earth that he called Dinosauria. And they all thought it was a hoax for money and fame. And of course, it turned out to be true. Dinosaurs are a real thing. And over 500 years ago, a really brilliant mathematician worked out the math And in his book called On the Revolution of the Celestial Spheres, he said something that seemed absurd, just completely crazy to the most educated people, the common people, the uneducated people. He just seemed like an absolute nutcase. And he basically said, no, that the sun and the moon and the stars, you know, we're not the center of it all. We're going around the sun at 90 miles a second. And of course, that was Nicholas Copernicus. He turned out to be right. So I'd like you to try and keep an open mind here. I hope I don't upset anybody about the things I'm going to be talking about. And I want to make it real clear that this information, very different than the first talk I gave, is based on partial information and with a lot of speculation. So I have to put a lot of things together and speculate, but I think it's very interesting information. So let's get started. The NDE overview. So those of you who heard my first presentation got a more extensive explanation of this, but we'll go over it really briefly. People will be in an accident, or maybe they have a heart attack or surgery gone wrong in the hospital or something like that. And they come out of their body, they find themselves pain-free, they can hear the thoughts and feel the emotions of the people around them. Sometimes they try and talk to them, but they quickly realize nobody can see or hear them. Now, a lot of people will ask those who have had near-death experiences, well, were you like a ghost? No, you're the opposite of a ghost. And those in the room who have had NDEs know you feel more real, more alive than you've ever felt in your life. It's just filled up with life. There's no doubt that that world is the real world, and this is like the dream world. It's almost like waking up from a dream. And NDEs are nothing new. Let's see, the Egyptian prayer of resurrection. Death is but a doorway to new life. We live today, we shall live again. In many forms shall we return. That's over 2,000 years old. Tibetan Book of the Dead, over 1,200 years old, a gleaming white light will shine from the heart of God. It will be so bright and beautiful, you can't pull your eyes away from it. So it's an old thing. So these people are outside of their bodies. The most common kind of near-death experience is they're out of their bodies, they get revived, they're back, and they realize there's an afterlife. Some have more extensive ones where they see the light, they go to heaven. They see this light 10,000 times brighter than the sun. They don't have to be told it's God. It's like the universe reverberates his name. Sometimes they have conversations with dead relatives that are up there in heaven. Some meet their former pets. Some are brought to heaven's gardens. Some have a life review where they could take them through the whole life from beginning to end, and they're shown what they did right and what they did wrong, and when they were following the path of love, and when they were following the path of fear. Some are given the choice to go back. Others are told it's not your time. Go back home. Of course, nobody wants to go back. Once you've experienced pure perfection and love beyond human words, you don't want to come back to this place. So that's the overview of the NDE. Now, when I gave my first talk, I talked about the beauty of heaven. The colors we don't have here, a sense of peace and joy. One guy said, imagine 100 happiest moments of your life, put them all in one moment. You don't come close to what it feels like to be there. So it's an amazing place. And Earth, by comparison, is kind of difficult. It's almost like a hell compared to heaven. So the question comes up, if heaven is such a wonderful place, what the heck are we doing down here? Why would we leave the comfort of our home and come to this place where we're in these frail bodies, we experience pain and suffering and trauma and go through all sorts of trials and tribulations? You know, the bodies are so frail. You get cuts, you get bruised, you get in an accident, you get injured, you can have chronic pain like I had for many years. Why would we come down here? And what's the point of the suffering if there's this perfect place? Why can't we just stay there? Well, we as human beings do this all the time. We leave the comfort of home to have a learning experience. You know, my home's got a nice big lazy boy. You know, it reclines back, and I got a nice big screen TV, and I've got air conditioning and heating. I got all the comforts of home, but I don't want to spend 24/7 there. Every once in a while, I like to go out and have an experience. I like to go on a vacation, experience a different culture. Sometimes I just leave the comfort of home to go out and do some exercise. Well, I'm not comfortable when I'm exercising. I'm sweating, and my legs are hurt if I'm running, and you know, I'm out of breath, and that's not comfortable. We do this to ourselves all the time. You know, a person who trains to climb Mount Everest. That's not comfortable at all. That's a grueling, difficult experience, but they do it to grow and learn. We leave the comfort of heaven to come down here to earth to grow and learn. Turns out, and this was a shock to me, that consciousness learns through contrast. And in the perfect love of heaven, when we're connected to universal consciousness, there's no contrast. We're all on the same page. We're all one big family. We're more connected than separate. There's no contrast. And so, for creation to continue, and some have even been told, for the bubble of love in heaven to exist, it requires some part of creation to experience the opposite. And that's what we're doing down here on earth. We have a love-fear duality. We have free will. Now that's different than freedom. In heaven, you have freedom. You can do whatever you want. But we're connected up there. Down here, we have the illusion of separateness. Now, it's just an illusion, but we do have that illusion of separateness. So, for instance, if I have a dog, I can kick the dog, or I can pet the dog. Now, if I was connected with the dog, I can't kick the dog. That's not really a choice, is it? If I kick that dog, I'm going to feel the pain the dog feels. So down here, we can make that choice. And every time we choose the path of love, that contributes to the creation process. So what we're doing down here is really important. We are a critical part of the engine of growth of creation. Now, we did not come here to suffer, but suffering is a natural byproduct of being here. So what do I mean by that? If you were to talk to the people who climbed Mount Everest and say, what were some of the reasons you did it? Not one of the thousands of people would say, well, I did it because I wanted to suffer. Now, if you asked them, did you know before you did it, you were going to suffer, you're going to be cold, you're going to be tired, you're going to be exhausted? Oh, yeah. We know before we come down. We know all the potentials. We know the suffering. And some people even choose to experience certain suffering for the purposes of growth, for the purposes of contrast. And that's how consciousness grows. So I have heard in the pre-soul planning that people do before they come down to earth, they will say, well, I want to take on this challenge of an abusive relationship or a physical disability or mental disability or something like that. And of course, we have some guides that don't let us take on too many challenges. You know, they make sure we take on enough challenges where we're going to learn, but nothing so difficult we're going to fail. So we're never given challenges we're incapable of overcoming. But that is sort of the reason that we're down here on earth. It's part of the critical process of the growth of creation and the love of heaven. And that is why you will hear that experiencers say, I was shown in heaven that we are considered the brave daredevil souls. We are honored in heaven for what we do. We come down here and we suffer and have these difficult lives, and we do it over and over again because we love our family. We care about them that much that we make the sacrifice to come down here. And it is a huge leap and jump in consciousness to leave the comfort of heaven and have a human experience. And it is such a difficult place to be. Earth is the most difficult planet in this galaxy to have a life. It's the third most difficult in the universe. And when you take on that difficult experience, you have a huge jump in consciousness. So it's a really important process. So suffering is a byproduct of all, but it's not necessary. It happens, and as time goes on, the suffering is going to be needed less and less and less. So that's the information I've got. So that brings us to what is happening on Earth right now. It doesn't take much of an intelligent person to look around the world today and see that we're living in a world of disharmony. We're trashing the environment. You know, we're trashing the soil, the air, the water. We're even contaminating the food supply with GMOs, genetically modified organisms, which the information on that from heaven is not good. That is not a good thing that we're doing. We're not getting along. We're fighting each other still. After all these centuries of wars, we still have war. We have homeless populations in the major cities growing. Have you ever seen politics so dysfunctional? Have you ever seen so much division here in the United States? And it's not just here, it's the world. There is just a big clash going on. And if you didn't know what was happening, you would think the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Everything's falling apart, everything's getting worse. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You know, if you were to have a giant house, a mansion, that your extended family lived in for generations, and now it's getting old, and the wood's rot, and the electrical's faulty, and the plumbing's leaking, and when it rains outside, it rains inside, you got dozens of buckets collecting the water, and you just can't patch it up anymore. You gotta bulldoze that house to make way for a new, bigger, better house that's gonna serve your family, your future generations. If you're a 5-year-old child, you don't know what's going on. The day the bulldozers are knocking down that house seems like the end of the world, but it's not. It's making way for something better. That's what's happening on Earth right now. So there's an old paradigm. And the old paradigm for thousands and thousands of years was this: animal consciousness, fight to survive. So what you would do is you would attach yourself to a group, whether it was an extended family or a city or something as big as the Roman Empire, and you made yourself as strong as possible. And now with that strength, you're going to go out and you're going to take from others by force and enslave others to serve your will and your needs. And if you didn't do this, it was like, what's wrong with you? You know, you're either going to be the one who takes or the one who gets taken from. You're either going to be a victim or you're going to be the one doing the victimizer. I mean, do you really want to be the victim? And that was the paradigm. That was the consciousness. Well, it was kind of necessary back then to survive. There's a new paradigm, and we haven't woken up to it yet. With our technology, with our mass manufacturing, with our amazing communication skills, you know, these little phones, we can talk to anybody in the world. With all of our information, the new paradigm is this: there is enough for everybody. And what we are doing is we are still in that old consciousness of I've got to fight and steal and rob and screw other people over to survive. And we have almost a mental illness in banking and finance and politics and corporations, out of control selfishness, narcissism, and ignorance beyond comprehension. I mean, it's getting really bad. And so what we're seeing is a lot of division, a lot of chaos, a lot of drama. You know, in 2020, we saw riots in the streets, and there's lots of finger pointing, and there's lots of craziness going on. And that is all the darkness kind of working itself out. So there's been a lot of stuff going on for many thousands of years. And the leaders, I'm going to say the big names in banking, politics, and corporations, I'm going to call them globalists. I'm not talking about conspiracy stuff, Illuminati, you know, or anything like that, secret societies. I'm just talking about the people with power and money that are in charge of running the world. They do not have our best interest in mind. They are causing a lot of problems, and we're going right along with it. You know, so there's a great awakening happening. People are beginning to wake up. We're in a new place in space. We're in a new energy. There is actually a very good movie out. It's called 2012, A New Beginning. It's on YouTube for free. And it talks about this process, this precession of the equinox, and how consciousness learns. The dance of consciousness is always one of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's almost like dip down in the darkness, spring back higher up into the light. Dip down in the darkness a little more, spring back even higher into the light. It's how we grow. We learn through that contrast. So this is going on right now, and we are just starting to spring back into the light. And it's going to be a chaotic time. There's going to be drama. Anytime there's change, especially fast change, it's going to be chaotic. Prion, channeled by Luke Carroll, says, you know, remember the acronym SUCK. Slow, uncomfortable change. We're already seeing that right now. So what is this Great Awakening? People are starting to realize there's more to this life. We're not just people in a rat race, and then when we die, we expire. They're starting to wake up because of groups just like this. The Dev is put together. They're starting to realize there's more to life than just going to my 9-to-5 job. And they're starting to become aware of the spiritual side. They're starting to become aware of the importance of cooperation instead of cutthroat competition. The importance of all the things that great religions have taught over the ages is really coming to mind. Brotherly love, charity for the impoverished, kindness, gentleness, forgiveness, self-control. They're waking up and realizing I'm more than just this bag of bones and flesh. And people are becoming aware of spiritual gifts they have, and we're starting to wake up to new realities, new potentials. There are things happening on Earth now that are just crazy in terms of a good kind of crazy. There's people realizing that consciousness affects matter. You know, you talk to a quantum physicist, they have to leave the building and distance themselves from the experiment because they're realizing their expectation of the outcome affects the experiment. If I think the subatomic quantum particle is going to have this kind of spin, that's what happens. They're starting to realize the universal truth that our collective consciousness creates the reality that we find ourselves in today. And once we start realizing we're a lot more powerful than we are, there's going to be these big changes on Earth. The changes will not come gracefully. The globalists are losing control. They're losing their power. They know it, so they're getting more and more brazen and more aggressive in trying to control humanity. There are governments now talking about digital currency so they can track what you spend and how you spend it, cut your money off, if you speak out against them. I mean, there's going to be some tough stuff that's coming up. And the way we have to deal with it as light workers, and I would consider the kind of people that would come to a group like this, you're light workers. You work with light and love, you have an awareness of our common connection, the importance of treating others with kindness, gentleness, compassion all the time. Boy, I failed at that one a lot. You know, it's a hard thing to do and learn, but I think we're learning. And the light workers in this room are the ones who are going to kind of have a difficult time in a way because we can see the better world that could be there, you know? And we want the rest of society to wake up, you know? Let's start cooperating. Let's stop with the craziness like an F-35 jet fighter that cost $100 million and uses more fuel in 3 hours than my SUV will use in its lifetime. You know, half of our money on a military budget. You know, that's craziness. And we want the changes to come now, but you don't go from being a 2-year-old child to being a 25-year-old productive adult overnight. It takes many years with a lot of mistakes and a lot of maturing. And so we're kind of out front in terms of our consciousness and the way we behave. Light workers are. Doesn't mean we're better than anybody else. We've just been around longer. There's a saying in Spanish, Lydia's going to understand this part. It says, and dime si no estoy bien con el dicho. It says, más sabe el diablo por viejo que diablo. Did I say that right? Lo dije bien? And what it means is the devil isn't really knowledgeable because he's smart. He's just been around longer. So we've been around longer, and it's our job to kind of be the leaders. And so what we have to do as this great awakening takes place, and there's a lot of chaos and division, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, is we have to keep our calm. We have to keep the peace. We have to cooperate with each other, not buy into the fear, not buy into the drama, the division. You know, the globalists want to keep us separated because if we're on the same page, you know, they're gonna lose pretty quickly. And so we have to really embrace the changes that are coming, see it for what it is. It's a difficult change that's happening to bring about a new world of love. And let's talk about this new world of love that's coming. So I'm going to try and speculate on how it's going to happen from what I've heard from near-death experiences. from what I have heard from channelers. How many people are not familiar with channeling? Okay, so everybody, okay, so we have one, couple of people. All right, so I'll go over channeling briefly. So, channeler is someone who speaks with another entity. They're on the other side of the veil, or one of our ET friends, and it's just like being on a channel on a walkie-talkie. You know, if you're not on the same frequency, you're not going to talk to each other. So, like, the reason why near-death experiences can't talk to people who are in the physical world is because they're on a higher frequency. And so what channelers do is they raise their frequency, and then the ET or the angelic being or whatever lowers theirs until they match, and then they can talk. So I get some of my information from near-death experiences, and some of the information about this new world that's coming comes from what I would call trusted channelers. Cryon, channeled by Lee Carroll. He spoke at the United Nations 7 times with channeled messages, not to the General Council, but to members of the United Nations. Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, and then there's Tobias, and there's a whole bunch. Now, I'm a little skeptical with channelers because the human being who interprets the message can use their own biases and cultural beliefs to contaminate the message, but a lot of the better channelers, they're really in line with what near-death experiencers say, and so I tend to trust them. So, what is this new world of love going to look like, and how is it going to come about? So what's going to happen is, because we're in a new energy for thousands of years it's going to be called the barbaric era. The time before 2012 is going to be called the barbaric era. You know, remember the Mayan calendar? They thought the world was going to end. Well, the Mayans knew what was going on. It wasn't the end of the world they were predicting. It was the end of an age, the precession of the equinox. And so this barbaric age is going to end. And now we're in this energy where love, the energy of love, is supported. It's the majority of the energy. So we had this fear-love duality, but we were mostly biased towards the fear, you know, conquest of others, controlling others, and now it's moving towards love, which is based on cooperation, kindness, gentleness, creativity, and all these other things. And so any business, organization, government, corporation, anything that isn't based on love, integrity, and compassion is going to fail. And one of the first big things that's going to fail is Big Pharma. It is going to be revealed that they are keeping us sick for profit, and they're going to go down. So any organization, government, business is either going to have to change to follow this new love and compassion and integrity, or they're going to go out. And we're seeing that today. We're seeing banking failures, you know, finance, back the crisis back in 2008. You know, we're seeing the beginnings of it, and that's going to continue. And you know, it's almost unbelievable what's coming, because I hear about this from heaven. They say that in the future, corporations are going to compete based on integrity. You know, we have advertisements today that are just absolute, forgive the French, BS. You know, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon all say, we have the largest 5G network. Well, two of you are lying. You know? Well, these advertisements will be real. Look how good we treat our employees, especially when one's having a problem. Look how good we are with our customers. We price our products fairly. You know, today you price it at the highest amount you can get. I had this guy come by. I had these big tree trunks in my property, and we had to cut down these big trees that were dying, threatening the house. And so he gave me a quote. He says, well, it's $500 to grind that tree stuff up. And the guy's bragging to me about how he makes more than doctors and lawyers. And I said, well, that's way out of my budget. I mean, I can do that in 10 hours myself and make $50 an hour, you know, so why would I do that? We immediately dropped the price in half. That's old consciousness. That's low consciousness right there. Try and get as much as I can out of my fellow man. You know, I sold a bike to a group of, it's from this group called Burners. And I didn't know it was one of them, but it was this group I was a member of way back when. And they came by and they looked at the bike and they said, oh, we're gonna, take it to the event. And I said, oh, if you're doing that, I'm gonna give it to you. And they said, no, we want to pay you the full $350. I said, no, I just take it, please. And we had a negotiation. We sold it for $150. And that's the way bargaining is supposed to be done in love. No, I want to give you a better price. No, that's not fair. I want to give it. Well, that's going to be happening in the future. Corporations, look how fair we price our products. Look how we take care of the environment. We leave no trace. We don't harm anybody. When a customer's having a problem with our product or service, look how much we're going to take care of them and make things right. It's going to be based on integrity because people are going to demand it. Politics. The things I've heard about politics in the future. You're not going to have this winner take all anymore. That's going to be gone. What happens today? The two sides fight. One of them gets in power and says, we're doing it my way now. The heck with the other half. Tough luck. Well, now, the politicians of the future will be the best mediators, the best moderators, the best negotiators. They will have everyone's interest in mind. What do we all want? We want meaningful jobs where we can make a valuable contribution to society. We want clean streets and safe neighborhoods and good schools and hospitals that take care of everyone. That's coming. The politicians of the future will never speak a negative word about a fellow candidate. They're going to say, well, Bob's got some good ideas, but here's why I think mine are going to work better. Can you imagine that? It's almost unbelievable. I hear about this future new world of love. And so, yeah, politics will change, business will change. Now, peace on earth is going to be the very first step. Now, I thought peace on earth was the end game, right? Now we're going to have peace on earth and it's all going to be wonderful. No, that's just the first step. Once we stop fighting each other, boy, things are really going to get rolling. Can you imagine a world where no country needs a military because we're all getting along? That's what it's going to be like. Now, some people think that this new world of love is going to come and it's going to be like, we're all going to be holding hands singing Kumbaya. No, we're still going to have our disagreements and arguments and differences of opinion, but it'll be like a healthy family that loves each other. The brothers and sisters may argue, they may even say, well, I'm not going to talk to you for a month or whatever. They may get mad at each other, but they're not going to pick up guns and knives and start killing each other. And that's where we're headed. We're going to solve our differences peacefully, and we're going to be on the same page. And there's going to be lots of bumps in the road along the way. When we talk about the future, we're only talking about potential futures, because anytime, even those in heaven who look at the future, free will is very important. It's one of the highest spiritual laws. And so we can change our minds, but we are already past the point of no return. So for many years, the potential future was this: self-destruction. Yeah. Revelation, Nostradamus, Mother Shipton. Those were all accurate predictions based on where we were headed. But thanks to a lot of help from above, we averted the crisis. We're not going to destroy ourselves. We're going to become this peaceful utopian society, what's called an ascended species. So we're going to learn to live with each other and with the environment in peace and harmony. I have heard from heaven that we're going to attack the environmental problems. That big patch of garbage in the Pacific Ocean. We're going to clean that up. We're going to clean up the air and the soil and the water. They are going to develop zero-point energy. Scientists are working on that now. Now, I'm a power plant engineer, so this is exciting stuff for me. 1 cubic foot, this is not from heaven, this is from our scientists. 1 cubic foot of space has enough quantum-based zero-point energy to provide all the electricity to the United States for a year. Now, this is from heaven, what I've heard. There's going to be these little boxes somewhere between the size of a microwave and a large refrigerator, depending on how much electricity you need. And it'll use a tiny little battery to start up, and it'll run for 50 or 100 years with no maintenance and produce clean, free, cheap energy. Now, it's going to happen. We're working on it now, and the problem the scientists are having, and this is from heaven, is that They don't realize that it requires human intention on that 0 point energy to make it work. So they're just trying to make it work mechanically, and it requires the consciousness of the human being to direct that energy to get the thing going. So I don't understand completely what it all means, but there's even going to be new energy involved. The new world of love. What else can I tell you about it that I know? So we're about 50 years away from peace on earth. That is not a set timeline. We're about 150 years away from what's going to look like a completely different world. So think about the world 150 years ago, how different it was. No electricity, no smartphones, really no technology. It was pretty primitive, mostly, farming and that kind of thing. There was some manufacturing, but it was just kind of getting started back then, 150 years ago. Great Britain, England had some manufacturing, but it was pretty much a farming world, right? Very different than today. I mean, today it'd be unrecognizable to somebody from 150 years ago. Well, same thing today. If an alien took a look at the world today, he would say, well, you guys are trashing your environment, you're fighting each other, your, systems are all falling apart. You're not going to make it. You're going to extinguish yourselves. And if he came back 150 years from now, his jaw would drop. What did these human beings do? How did they clean up their act so much? My goodness, they made this planet into a garden paradise. That's what's coming. There's going to be communities of around 100 to 150 people. And they're going to be living very similar to indigenous cultures, but with some technology. So it's going to seem primitive because we're going to discover biology is the best technology. We are going to be able to communicate with each other telepathically and with our ET friends. We are going to be able to communicate with plants and animals. We will develop a friendship and a partnership with plants and animals. So today we kind of treat nature like a resource, natural resources. We're the top species, which we are, but we're supposed to be caretakers, not dominating and abusing nature. That's what we're doing now, but we're going to develop friendships. We'll tell these plants to grow there. We're going to tell these animals we need help with, you going here and grazing. And we're going to really learn a lot from the plants and animals. We're going to have friendships with people on other planets, communicating telepathically. And we're not going to need smartphones because it'll be like, hey, sweetie, should we invite the kids over for dinner? Well, let me ask them. Yeah, they said they're coming. I can imagine that world. It's going to be a different world. In the transition, we're going to have managerless corporations. The pyramid structure today that we have, one leader tells the top managers what to do, they tell the guys below, and then it gets down to all of us who just have to kind of be the obedient minions. That's going away. It's going to be ruled by the community decisions. Now, we have managerless corporations already today. They're just beginning to get started, aren't they? They're called, anyone? Co-ops. Yeah? The Mandragon Corporation. Does anybody know how that's pronounced properly? I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's from Spain, but they are one of the biggest co-ops in the world. If they were in the Fortune 500, they'd be in the top 100. And so we're going to see a lot of co-ops and just people cooperating. And the new world of love is going to be most people on the planet, the vast majority, being involved in service to humanity. The whole society will be focused on children, teaching them about God, nature, science, love, compassion. We're going to have some technology, but limited because we're going to use biology as our best technology. In fact, I've heard from heaven that very shortly, within the next 10, 20 years or so, they're going to develop a microchip based on biology. They've already done some testing with DNA, and they can store memory in DNA. So we're going to have these super efficient microchips. We're going to be a spacefaring culture. We're going to have ships that go to other parts of the galaxy for trading or cultural exchanges with other beings. And that brings us to ET's and Earth's role. Now, this is what I'm real hesitant about talking about, but I'll tell you what I do know. I don't know a whole lot. I haven't heard a whole lot from heaven and channelers about ancient cultures and ETs, but I'll tell you what I do know. So About 95% of the species in our galaxy are benevolent or neutral. And about 5% are kind of misbehaving. And if your consciousness is low and you're misbehaving, you sort of have a ceiling of where your technology can get to. And so it's kind of self-limiting. The 95% benevolent are more advanced technologically, and they give the 5% who are misbehaving free will, but they prevent them from causing too much grief. You know, like a mother letting her 2-year-old run around and be crazy, but you know, there's limits. We're not going to let you burn the house down, that kind of thing. So they're kind of keeping them in check. And it turns out in the role of creation, when a species becomes a benevolent species and they learn to live with each other and with the environment harmony, their job becomes to seed life in another planet. So how many have heard of the Pleiadians? Oh, quite a few. I'm very impressed. So the Pleiadians are our cosmic parents. They were instrumental in helping to seed life on this planet. They've been watching over us. They live in these peaceful utopian societies. They went through what we went through. They went through their time of war. They went through their barbaric age. And they're not going to land a spaceship on the White House lawn, right? That's not going to happen for a couple of reasons. One, you know, what if I told you, like, you moved into my neighborhood and I said, you see that guy across the street over there? He spends half of his money on military gear and guns and weapons. And if you knock on his door and he doesn't know you, he's not going to answer the door pointing a gun at your face, but he's going to have it at his side ready to go. Probably wouldn't knock on his door, would you? You know, he's a little too shooty, a little too jittery and barbaric, right? Yeah, so I've just described the U.S. government having half of our money on military, and if a spaceship landed on the White House lawn, would they be met with smiles and hugs and handshakes, or would there be a military response? Yeah. We're not ready. So the way I've heard it's going to work is the Pleiadians are going to start turning off their camouflage. So their ships are here now, they're kind of watching over us. And they're going to start turning it off slowly. It's going to be in baby steps. You know, there'll be probably certain government agencies disclosing that, you know, Roswell was real, which it was, things like that. So it'll happen in baby steps slowly, because if they just show up like that, even if there wasn't a military response, a spaceship showing up out of the blue could cause the world markets to crash. You know, they've done this before. They've done the first contact thing before. They know what not to do. So it's going to be a slow process. And once everybody has seen the ships and we all know they're here and they kind of slowly work into it, they'll present themselves and they'll let us know who they are and what they're doing and what they want from us. But basically, they want to have a relationship with their children. They're kind of related to us. So they look like us. There's different variations, but a lot of them kind of look very Nordic, blonde hair, you know, white skin, that kind of thing. They tend not to come here in person because it stinks. So they're empathic, you know, they can sense the emotions of others. And so all the fear and negative emotions that they don't have in their culture, it's kind of like a bad smell would be to you or I. You know, it's just not pleasant being here. So there's reasons why they're kind of waiting for us to wake up. And then plus they have what's called the prime directive, where they're not supposed to interfere until you've made contact, you know. And they have transporters and replicators, and they're part of something called the Galactic Federation of Worlds.
Wait, does that sound familiar?
Yes, does that sound familiar, Star Trek? So when I first heard all this stuff, I'm looking into it, I'm going, what the heck? These jokers aren't even trying to make up a good lie. They're copying Star Trek. You know, I almost threw it all out and said, oh, this alien stuff, it's all garbage, you know, because I'm kind of skeptical, especially when I've only heard things from a few sources. So
This shows you how visionary that Steve Roddenberry was.
thank you. There's the transition into what I'm about to say, Gene Roddenberry. So I found out, I actually heard the interview. Gene Roddenberry met a Pleiadian, and he was part of a group of trance channelers that met in the 1950s, some of whom were Pleiadian channelers. And I read some of the notes. Somebody took the old typewritten notes and posted them online. And I read the notes from those meetings. He got his ideas from Star Trek from the Pleiadians. So they're gonna show up and talk about this stuff, and they're going, what the heck? And the reason the Pleiadians contacted him is because, think about the movies of aliens in the 1950s. Were they all about, oh, nice benevolent aliens who are here? No, they're coming here to destroy us or to eat us or to take our gold and resources, right? I mean, that movie Independence Day, you know, I mean, just fear. And so they want to present the reality of how things are going to work out. You know, it's not going to be that there's going to be this peaceful thing. It's going to be this wonderful future of humanity and not the negative thing that you're seeing. So it was to introduce us to that idea, to help us kind of move us in that direction. The Pleiadians are very wise. So the Arcturians are the cosmic parents of the Pleiadians, and there's all sorts of races out there. There's Syrians and Lemurian, right? So let's talk now about that's a basic overview of ETs and Earth Troll. Probably one of the most interesting things is, you know, I heard when I was investigating all this stuff that all eyes of the galaxy were upon us. Why? Why Earth? Well, we're the only free will planet who's doing this love through duality. You don't need more than one in the galaxy, just like you don't need more than one giant research lab for cancer, because once they come up with a cure for this kind of cancer, they share it with the rest of the world. So they learn from us. Well, how do they learn from us if we're so primitive? Well, basically, we're extremely limited, and we're living in this dark, harsh environment where we're not getting along, we're fighting each other, doing all these things, and somehow we manage to show love and compassion. You know, there's all sorts of nonprofits, there's all sorts of people doing amazingly compassionate things, you know, there's soup kitchens for the homeless and people coming up with new ways to clean the environment and new ways to cooperate. And it's like, well, if they, with all their primitive stuff, managed to do these things, you know, they learn from us. So by what we're doing here on Earth, we're helping the galaxy. And because we're helping the galaxy, that's helping the rest of the universe. And so when you dip down into darkness, a couple of things can happen. You can spring back up into the light, or you can dip down too far and break and destroy yourselves. Well, a lot of other benevolent species in the galaxy thought that what the Pleiadians were doing, allowing us to dip so far down without showing up and stopping and interfering, was very dangerous. They said they're going to break themselves, and that was going to cause a ripple through creation, a negative ripple. And it was a risky thing. And they said, well, you know, you guys shouldn't be doing this. It's not going to work. And we made it through. We didn't destroy ourselves. Somewhere around the 1988 to 1991 time frame, you know, right when the Soviet Union was falling, you know, Reagan says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. We were going to destroy ourselves through nuclear war. That was going to happen. And we averted a crisis. And so now we are on an irreversible course to becoming an ascended species. And it's just going to take a lot of time. So the New World of Love is about 150 years away. And a lot of the people, including the ones sitting in this room, decided to come down here to be part of that transition, to be the leaders and the lights in the world, helping others stay calm. You know, take a breath. The world's not going to end. We're just going through a tough change, just like when you talk to the 2-year-old who's scared of the dark. It's okay. There's not, look, I'm going to show you there's nothing here, you know. And that's what we have to do. We have to be the adults in the room. It's a tough job, but it's what we came down here to do. So, more about ancient cultures. So, our scientists believe that the Sumerians are the oldest culture on Earth, around 10, 12,000 years old. Yeah. And that's because, you know, when that kind of time frame comes along, there's nothing left. There's no records. There's nothing that survives so many years. So I've heard from channelers and near-death experiences about ancient cultures here. Let's talk about the Lemurians. Lemuria was on what is now the islands of Hawaii, only the water level was much lower then, and so they were kind of connected. They lived very highly spiritually advanced culture, and they were isolated, by their island, and so they didn't have to deal with, defense or invading tribes or anything like that, and they did very well. They had some technology that we don't have. They had cold chemistry technology to renew their biology, so as their bodies got older, they would go to the top of the mountain where it was, negative 40 degrees, and they had some sort of chemistry that renewed their biology and renewed their youth. The Atlanteans were very advanced, and what happened was, there's the story of the flood, right? So as near as I can tell, the Atlanteans, which was, I think, 60,000 years ago, something like that. I'm not sure the exact timeline. Same with Lemuria, somewhere in the 50, 60,000 years. They were doing well, and then this other group came along, around 2,000 people from this other culture that was very left brain, very intellectually based, not very spiritual at all, but much better technology. They came along, of course, the first thing they tried to do is take over. But even though they had advanced technology, they were outnumbered, 1,000-to-1 by the Atlanteans, and so that didn't happen. But what happened is this group of 2,000 people from this other culture that was fleeing a disaster where they lived, they started introducing their technologies, and it made them very brain-based, and they started disconnecting from their spirituality. So when there was tsunamis from an asteroid that broke up and hit in various places on the earth and caused big tsunamis, they didn't see it coming. Before, they would have seen it psychically and prepared for it, but they didn't see it coming. So that's where the story of the floods came from. And they had some really good genetic technology. They had the ability to splice human DNA with animal DNA, which that's against prime creator's wishes. That's against God's wishes. You're not supposed to do that. That's against the law of the creator. You're not supposed to create new species. So they were creating animal-human hybrids to use as slaves and sex workers and things like that. So they had a downfall. But that's about all I know about some of the ancient cultures. I know that ETs did visit a lot of some of the ancient cultures. The Nephilim, you've heard about the Nephilim in the Bible. They mention the Nephilim. They say the sons of gods came down and mated with the daughters of men. Well, they weren't the sons of God. They were probably the Anunnaki or some other race that came down, and that produced this offspring that were called the Nephilim by the Bible. So that was a real thing. That was kind of a surprise to me. But that's ancient cultures, and that brings us to probably the most important part of the talk today, which is spiritual practices. So I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you. A lot of crazy stuff, do we believe it or not? Well, it's based on partial information. I tend to believe a lot of this stuff is true. It has an element of truth. I'm not 100% sure about it all. I'm sure about the fact that we live forever, that there's this home called heaven that we all go back to, that love is the most important thing in the universe. That stuff I'm sure of. I hear it from just about every near-death experiencer. This stuff, it's kind of out there, but I find it interesting and I do believe it. So now that we know all this, what do we do? Spiritual practices. I always hated it as I was going through my spiritual awakening when I'd listen to some guru and they'd say, you need to connect with your true self and go with the flow of life. Well, what is that? That doesn't mean anything. All right, I wake up in the morning, I got to go to work, I got to do this and that. Exactly what do I do different when I'm paying my bills and going to work and going to the doctor's office and taking care of the kids? What do I do different to connect with my true self and flow? So we're going to give you some concrete things. One of them from a Pleiadian channeler, but most of them from near-death experiences about how to get through the chaotic times that are coming and how to have a good life. And I'm still in the process of learning this stuff myself, so I don't want you to think I'm some expert up here that has mastered it all. I know the theory, but I have just as much trouble as anybody else in this room implementing it all. So let's talk about some of that stuff. Well, to those on the other side of the veil, we are the courageous ones. So the first thing that I have found that helps me have a good life here on planet Earth is to remember that I'm really here doing an important job because I love my family. Mike Harper is here, and he and I share something. Did I say your name right? Okay, he and I share something in common. We both get kind of tired of planet Earth. So I thought, why did I do this? I could have stayed in heaven. And there's no obligation to come down here. but to remember that we're doing a really important job because we love our family and we care about the creation process. I mean, even though it's a tough job, it's an awesome job. And it's important, it's an important job. You know, I realize the importance of this life and extending it as long as possible. But you know, when I think about death, going back home, I'm thinking about it as something exciting, but I'm going to make the best of this while I'm here because I know how important it is. Living in the present. Now, this is an old saying, you know, you hear the New Age spiritual life community, but I'm going to give some concrete examples here. So the past only exists, if you think about it, the past only exists when a human being remembers it. If nobody's thinking about some past event, it doesn't exist in the present moment. It's like it's never happened. The future only exists when a human being imagines what it might be. And of course, we often imagine a future that's wrong. You know, people say, oh, I'm afraid of flying. No, you're not. You're afraid of the thing you're imagining, which is the plane crashing and you dying. You know, if they had a crystal ball, the plane was going to take off and land without problems, and they believed it 100%, they wouldn't be afraid of flying. So it's a difficult task to remain in the present. You know, I go out on a walk with my wife. We'll walk 3-4 miles a couple days a week, which is a miracle, considering that my chronic pain that I used to have brought me to 3 years in a mobility scooter. I couldn't get my feet for more than 10 minutes, and I had this miraculous healing that started back in 2019. You know, and 20 times on that walk, I find myself thinking about this or that, or I got to pay this bill, or I got to get the garage fixed up, or I got to do the maintenance on my 4Runner. Oh my gosh, my client needs this information about the power plant. I do consulting on power plants. And 20 or 30 times I'll have to say, you know what, that's not part of my reality right now. I'm out on a walk, and I have to bring myself back into looking at nature. No matter what happens, never give up on life. This is the tree that never gives up. So a lot of things happen, and sometimes we just feel like throwing in the towel. I got to thank my wife here because I had thrown in the towel. I had originally written my book in 2017. I completed it, and I tried to self-publish it, and I just wasn't going anywhere. And I became really depressed, and I said, I'm done. And I was just going to live like a hermit, you know. And I had given up on life. And she came along, and she saw the potential in me, and she rescued me. And my whole life changed after I met her. And I wouldn't be here talking to you today if it weren't for her. So, you know, never give up because you never know what's coming. I got choked up just thinking about it. I did not see that she was this amazing wife was coming. That was going to, you know, help change my life. So, you know, hang in there because you never know what happens. And then just remember, just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. A lot of people associate struggling with failing. But the word from heaven is that the times when we're struggling the most is when we're growing the most. Now, if I need to go from where I am right now to a mile away, I can take a nice leisurely walk, but it's going to take me 20, 30 minutes to get there. If I want to do it fast, I got to run. I ain't going to be comfortable. I'm out of breath. I'm going to be sweating. My leg's going to be hurting, and I might even be sore tomorrow. But I have a lot of progress in a short time. You know, people who have a nervous breakdown, huge changes really quick enough. Yeah, struggling is not failure. So when you're going through the difficult times, you have to remember we're making progress, whether we can see it or not, whether we know it or not. How many people have seen the movie Passengers? Okay, a few of us have. So spoiler alert if you're going to watch this movie. This guy here, he's on this ship, and it's going to a new planet called Homestead 2, and it's a 120-year voyage. So they put these 5,000 people in these stasis pods, and they hit this meteors or asteroids out there in space, and his pod malfunctions. So he wakes up 30 years into a 120-year voyage, 90 years left to go. The equipment to put you in stasis is back on Earth. The ship pods are just to maintain you. They can't put you in stasis. He's just been sentenced to death, alone. And he can't wake somebody else up. That's a death sentence to them. So he's stuck. And his only friend is this bartender, this android bartender on this cruise, this space cruise ship. And he's really depressed. And he tells the bartender to give him some advice. I thought it was some great advice. You can't get so hung up on where you'd rather be that you forget to make the most of where you are. And I can't tell you how many times I find myself in life doing this, you know? Not making the most of where I am. So that's a big thing to keep in mind when it comes to living in the present moment. You know, I have visions about the things I want to do in the future, and sometimes I get frustrated, and I forget to enjoy the moments that I have and all the beauty that I have. And you know, gratitude is a very powerful energy. It is a magnet for abundance for the thing that we are grateful for. So just feeling gratitude, saying, I am grateful for this, I am grateful for that, and we have to say it out loud. It's really good to say things out loud because our ears hear it, and it goes back into our subconscious, and we are creator gods, right? There's this law of attraction. Yeah, everybody knows the law of attraction? Yeah? So whatever you set your intention on, that cosmic energy starts to give you more of that. And it doesn't know good or bad. Oh, I'm afraid of this thing. Oh, the human being's got this emotion focused on this. That's what we're going to give them. You know, so then you got to face your fear. Well, it works in the other direction too. When you focus on the positive, you create and you draw those more positive things to you. So the law of attraction is not new. There's plenty of sayings that talk about the same thing, that same idea, right? Be careful what you wish for. You know, I'm not talking about wish like, oh, I wish I had $1 million, but I don't have $1 million. That is a focus on what you lack. I'm talking about the kid who throws the penny in the well and says, oh, I wish to have an ice cream today. And he knows he's going to get it because he just made the wish. It's a positive wish. Yeah, that's going to affect the outcome, right? That's going to draw those things. Fortune favors the bold. There's an old saying, a couple 100 years old at least. Person is bold, they say, I'm going to do this thing, they have the intention, and it looks like the luck is following them. No, they're using that manifestation law. And even a word like abracadabra that has been used by magicians in the last couple 100 years, that's an old saying, over 2,000 years old, comes from ancient Aramaic, and it means, I will create as I speak. So, when we are having problems, one of the tricks I use, if I'm worried about something, if I'm worried about money, I say, it's okay. You're going to be taken care of. You already had lifetimes where you experienced poverty. You're done with that. You can relax. You know, you speak to yourself out loud because thoughts and words have power. That's one of the things I heard very early on in my NDE research. Thoughts and words have power. And in a group like this, we got to be really careful with what we say because we're powerful manifestors. We're more powerful manifestors than the average Joe out there. You know, they can get away with saying, you know, I am sick and tired of this. Well, they're probably not going to get sick and tired because they're not great manifestors. For us to say something like that, ooh, yeah, we've got to be careful with speech. So, this is a quote from Mother Teresa. We can't all do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And when you do a small thing with great love, it becomes a great thing. And I'm going to give you a little example. We're getting real close to a Q&A. Of something I heard recently in a testimony of how important the small act of love is. Many near-death experiencers, when they're in heaven and they get sent back, God says to the person, whoever, Jesus or spiritual entity, says, you got to go back and change the world. Change the world? You know, I'm a waiter from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I can't change the world. I'm nobody. I say, oh, yeah, it's real easy. So they explain this is how it's done. There's something called the ripple effect. You're familiar with the ripple effect? Yeah. So you have these life reviews, and they show you that when you're cruel to somebody, it kind of worsens their day, and that person's going to be in a worse mood, and they're going to be out and be more cruel to the people around them, and it ripples out. And the same thing with kindness. When you're usually kind to somebody, you brighten their day, they're going to go home and be kinder to their family, and then their family members are in a better mood. And then they're a better state, higher vibration, more loving, and they're going to be a little better with people around them. Some near-death experiencers have seen this out to 35 iterations. I was nice to that guy, that's one. He was nice to his family, that's two. The family members were nice to their friends, that's 35. So it's going to be a grassroots movement of love. That's how things are going to change. You know, one act of love and kindness and compassion at a time. And I was going to say something about this. I lost my train of thought. So Small things, great, okay, yeah, I remember I was gonna tell you. So I recently heard this testimony that'll give an example of how important the tiniest act of love can be. Now, people go through their life reviews in heaven, and sometimes there's only 1 or 2 watching, sometimes there's 8 or 10 entities watching, spiritual entities, guides, angels, I don't know what to call them. Sometimes there's hundreds or even thousands for some people. Well, this one guy who's going through his life review and his near-death experience, and there's a stadium full of beings watching. Thousands and thousands of beings watching his whole life from beginning to end, what he did right and what he did wrong. And he's at this one part of his life review where he's out in public and he's got his bottle of water, it's half done, and he's about ready to throw it away because he doesn't want it. So he's walking towards the trash can and he sees this little tiny plant, growing there, struggling to survive. And he thinks, oh, it's a hot day, the plant's probably thirsty. I'm going to dump my water on the plant. And when he did that, the stadium erupted in cheer, like we would when our football team wins the winning goal of the championship, which has very little meaning. The love of the plant, that's the true, and that's how important it is, because that's the creation process. The world is not going to be changed by electing the perfect set of benevolent leaders or passing a set of laws that create a utopia. We already tried that. We got over 180,000 of federal laws, tens of thousands of pages of state law, thousands of pages of local law and international monetary. It didn't work. It just made things worse and more complicated. It's not going to be saved by passing better laws. It's not going to be saved by pointing the fingers at all the bad guys and putting them behind bars. The world's going to be saved by one act of kindness at a time, by people just like the kind of people that come to an event like this, doing their best to slow down and live a good life with compassion and kindness to others, and especially, and this is the one I really struggle with, being kind and compassionate to those who our ego tells us don't deserve it. That's the one I struggle with, and nothing is more meaningful to heaven than that. Yeah. And so, as this new world of love is coming along, and as we're seeing some problems with the step back phase, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're in a step back right now. It is going to be our duty, by one act of compassion at a time, to love the world into the paradise it was always meant to be in the first place. And we're going to win the game. And we just got to be patient. The new world of love is coming. All right, well, that's about it. So this is some resource information. Anybody who wants can send me an email, and I will send you a copy of this presentation. I will send you a copy of the detailed presentation that I didn't present here. I simplified it because my guides told me you're going to be too brain focused if you go on the long presentation. So I'll give you the detailed presentation. And at that website up there, stepsofhope.org/10, there's a really good thing that I would encourage everybody to listen to. It's number 5 in the list. And it is Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, talking about the conversation that he has with souls before they decide to come down here. So if you think your job's not important, you think you're not making a difference in the world, you listen to that 15-minute video. It's an audio. It's one of the best descriptions of sort of what we do when we come down here, how important it is. There's also some guided meditations on that website for various things, grounding, quitting smoking, connecting with divine energy. There's a bunch of guided meditations. So you can right-click over the files and choose Save Link As and download it to the computer, or you can just click on it and listen to it online. My Facebook group is called The Other Side of the Veil. We've got about 1,000 members. I occasionally post there. And as my thank you to Deb and to the group, because when we follow our life path, our job, what we're supposed to do, and my job on earth was not as an engineer, a power plant engineer. I did that for the money. My job as a teacher, both my parents were teachers, and one of the guys I interviewed, 6-hour interview, had a near-death experience. He said, "You're a teacher." And I didn't know that. I was a teacher. And when I get the opportunity to teach, it brings me joy. And I wouldn't have that opportunity to teach if it weren't for an open-minded group like this that would hear the message, because most of the world rejects the message and calls me crazy. So it's a joy to just have you here to be able to fulfill my purpose. And as a thank you, If you want a copy of my book, I'll send you a PDF. Just email me, say I'm from Deb's group, send me a copy of the book. It's the unpublished version. I can't give away the published version because the publisher owns the rights, but the unpublished version's almost identical. Just a few minor differences. And if you want a session, I do spiritual counseling for people who are having spiritual awakening, NDE, or just have questions. Anybody in this group who wants a free session, I normally charge $120. You just send me an email, say I'm in Deb's group, and then we'll set up a free session. And that is my thank you to say, you know, you have helped me fulfill my purpose just by being here. All right, so. Yes, the new book is called The New World of Love. It should be out in December, and it's going to talk sort of in a much more detailed way about much of what I went over today. So what do we have for Q&A? About half an hour?
No, we have, about 10 minutes and ask some questions of David. Please use a loud voice because it might not be heard, and we might repeat it. I might repeat it, so don't think that. I just want to make sure that the people on Zoom hear it. So, Mary. I was wondering, in 2012, on YouTube, what was the name of that? Something in 2012.
Give me just a second here. My memory is such that I can hide my own Easter eggs. So just a second. Well, I don't know if I said it right during the talk, so let's see. Did somebody find it? Here it is. If you. What happened with the display?
It's not going out.
I've got to hit the presentation button. There it is. If you search on this term, 2012 Crossing Over, A New Beginning on YouTube, you'll see it on there for free. Can you tell us a little bit about your new book? The new book, yeah, it's going to be a lot more speculation, but it's going to talk about sort of how we get to this new place, sort of the chaos that's going to happen. You know, it's going to talk about how to avoid the chaos. Like nobody has to be part of the chaos. You know, if you set your intention, you say, it is my intention to, in these difficult times, to have prosperity, financial prosperity, to be surrounded by my friends and family members, to have loving, meaningful relationships, to have a meaningful employment and a job, and have health and all these things that you want. And you say it out loud so your ears hear it, goes back to your subconscious. You're not going to be part of it all. You don't have to be part of anything you don't want to be part of. Yeah. And it's going to talk about that, and then it's going to talk about what this new world is going to look like, and sort of a little bit more about alien races and their involvement with us, and it'll just be much more detailed.
Okay.
Are you calling on that?
I'll follow.
Okay.
Serena was next, so then before. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the talk. It answered a lot of questions. Maybe and I didn't believe it, really. I mean, I wrote it in the book, but I'm doing, I don't know about this. So thank you. In the beginning, you said that, Earth was the third worst place or something
Yeah.
like that. What are the other two?
No, I'm not sure about that. So I've heard quite a few times that Earth is definitely, without a doubt, the most difficult planet in this galaxy.
Okay.
And there are hundreds of billions of stars in this galaxy. So they didn't say it was the third most difficult in the universe. One NDE, just one, said he was told there were only 2 more planets like Earth. So it might be the most difficult. This might be, you know, we might be at the top of the game right here. I don't know.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, Laura. Like in terms of the technology, like how do you gather the data? In your research, would you be able to differentiate between the download modality and the upload, the download, like there are 2 separate, the download, the recipient of the data versus, and you bring it down here, we have channels that are free ones, with a different, it's more like laser, from this download. If you come across animals, how do you experiences from up there, that they've, blown out, the whole cosmology, the whole, going to live in. How can they then maybe utilize channeling or just come across in the research of how to choose a different or the same or within the time or is one phenomenon connected to the other phenomenon?
I think I sort of understand. So when you're in heaven, your vibration is instantly raised and it gives you some channeling abilities. But in heaven, there's this mind-to-mind communication, like you mentioned, that's extremely efficient. So in one split second, you could get something that would take a year to explain to somebody else. They describe when they come back, losing much of their universal consciousness and knowledge because it can't fit into the human brain. And so just what you said, their channeling is sort of linear based and slower, but it's the best we have within the third density environment we find ourselves. Is that what you were looking for?
Well, so you're saying that there is a link between the download phenomenon and the download versus like are these experiences that are walking around channeling?
Some of them do channel, not all of them, but some of them do channel.
And then gathering that data, that download is the same as channel. Download is the same as channel.
Download is different than channeling. So download is the individual connecting universal consciousness and getting messages, whereas a channel is a communication between two entities. That's a good question. I was hoping nobody was going to ask that. I was sitting with a friend one night, Christmas Eve, about, let's say 6-7 years ago, and she said something. We were talking about spiritual stuff, and she said something. I started going off, and it was like my mouth was on autopilot. And after about 3 minutes, I stopped, and I had to ask her what I said because I didn't remember, and she really liked it. But she told me, and it kind of spooked me, so I haven't done it since then. But I do what I would say is information channeling. So sometimes I go into kind of this very deep, peaceful, meditative state, and I get a ton of information. And and then I have communications with spirit guides, which people think it's wonderful, and it's not always wonderful. I mean, like, I live, out in the boonies on top of a mountain in the middle of the woods with my wife, and we got an outdoor shower. And that's when I always shower. I don't shower in the indoor one because it's nice, blue sky, trees, and these wasps were coming out. And we got a lot of wasps on the property, taking down their nests. And they weren't coming at me when I was working in the yard early in the day, and I was getting mad. I'm like, why are these wasps coming at me? I swatted one, and I stepped on it, and another one came at me. I'm in the shower, I got my clothes on, I feel vulnerable. And I killed another one, and I said out loud, why are these dang wasps bothering me? And my guides, they never accuse me, they never tell me I'm being bad. They just, a matter of fact, this is the information. They said, oh, well, why do you think they're coming in the shower? And I said, I don't know. And I said, well, what's happening in Texas right now? Oh, there's a drought. All the rivers and streams have dried up. I said, yeah, they were coming there to get a drink, and you killed them for that. They weren't going to bite you. So it's not all fun. This is talking with guides,
Oh, yeah, you had mentioned something about the Arcturian.
The Arcturians, Yes.
What is that relationship?
They're the cosmic parents. They see the life on the Pleiades. So they're our cosmic grandparents. And they have a relationship with us too.
They're the parents of the Pleiadians.
Yes. Yeah. Our parents. So the Arcturians are our cosmic grandparents, and they do have a relationship with us, but it's much like earthly relationships. The grandparents have a very different role than the parents. The parents have to provide a loving discipline, whereas the job of grandparents is to shower the kids with love and affection. Yeah, so they got a different role with us. They're not here to kind of watch over or discipline or direct us. They're just
cosmic grandparents.
Yeah, they're just here to just shower us with good things. And
Anyone else? When you think about it, children and animals,
Yes, that's what I understand, yeah. So animals are like 100% aware. In fact, where I used to live, I had planted about 500 flowers in my backyard, tiny backyard, and I'd have 50, 100 bees and butterflies. And I liked it because I liked flowers. Probably one of the few straight guys in the world who's a sucker for flowers. So, but the bees would, I was scared of the bees and they'd come at me and I'd swat them. And one day my guide said, I hate these dang bees doing this. And my guide said, oh, you're causing that. I'm like, what? How am I causing that? They're coming at me. And they said, well, the bees can sense your fear. And so when they sense your fear, they think you're an enemy. They said, you're causing that. Calm down. They will respond. And I did. And my guides basically said to me, what's the worst going to happen? You get stung, you have a few minutes of pain. They know that you can kill them with one swat. They're not going to attack you unless they think there's a problem. So after that, I could, get up to the flower a couple inches away and look at them, and they'd land on me, and I would just let them. I never once got stung. Yeah, animals are far more aware, and children, like you said, yeah, 100% aware. It's been a pleasure, it really has.
I hope the rest of your visit is great.
We're enjoying it so far, I'm sure it will be. Do we have time for another question?
We might, but we might have time to think about a question. If you have a question, we might have a little bit of time, but I did want to tell you about Sandra Rose. She's an inspirational speaker. She's spoken here back in March, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And she has a story, her own experience. Heaven is real, and I would love to tell you all about it. So she's now gone professional speaker, and just wanted to share that with you. The other thing I wanted to share, besides David's book and his new upcoming book, I'm currently reading this John Burke book, Imagine the God of Heaven. And I just want to read you a couple of things real quick about why I picked this book up. And it had to do with people, my Christian friends, saying, well, what about the Bible? The Bible says, and what about the Bible? And I'm kind of inclined that I've gone off the rail here. So anyway, this Lee Strobel says, John Burke skillfully, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor, sorry. Skillfully weaves captivating stories of near-death experiences with biblical principles to demonstrate an incredible truth. God is far more amazing than we ever imagined. The reason I wanted to put that, have you hear that, is because I think this is a great book that can help you put your religious or Christian biblical views in with the near-death experiences that he's talking about. And then the final one, I hope some of you have read Mary Neal. She was a doctor. She was also an atheist. She was very science-based spinal surgeon, and she didn't believe near-death experiences were real until she had her own near-death experience that changed her life. She was trapped under a kayak and drowned. She said, this book reveals the God of endless compassion and kindness, whose presence I never wanted to leave. So I just thought David would want to maybe read through this too, because he probably gets some questions from people that are very biblical. And I think this would help a little bit. And John, you as well, that might help you to understand how he pulls that together and meshes it. But anyway, we're so thankful you're here. Very grateful that you were able to take the time and come and listen to David. John, you have a
I just
question?
want to mention that in this current project, I have asked dozens of theology leaders, ministers, rabbis, to pastors of all faiths, to participate in this, and to give me what they know, or what they teach, or what they provide teachers about people. I have one church giving a great person to like because, and then there's a rabbi by the name of Larry Desai, who is frequently this weekend you know, some documentaries and things that are each man is just kind of fixed. And he hung up on
Well, I'm
it.
gonna,
So this is something
yeah,
that I would like to.
Yeah.
probably-
well, and the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send you a name of a couple of priests, and I don't know exactly which denominations, one was Lutheran, one was Catholic. And, they were on the shared death experience panel that I just listened to on Saturday. And I'll try to get their name and number, because they definitely are aware of near-death experiences. They're very, and they're using it with their congregation and talking about it in their sermons. So there are some people out there. I don't know, you know, I'm sorry you had that experience, but
And I do have one very fundamentalist Christian pastor who's ironically coming to Disneyland, in June, who has agreed to meet me. Because he kind of sort of integrates that in some of his speaking.
anyone else have a question for David? Okay.
No, I've never been able to do that. I know that when a loved one dies, they'll often come back and, you know, be one of your spirit helpers or whatever. So, and if you speak to those who have passed on before us, they do hear you.
Mike,
Yeah, we're all kind of like one up there and all kind of like, I guess you could say married. There's no real separation up on the other side, but they all. It's like a big polygamy thing, I don't know. It's got a negative connotation. It's a reference in the record, that doesn't have to be on the,
Sounds like in the film, I think.
Oh,
we
boy,
are,
I'm in trouble.
from what I've read and understood, we are part of a soul family.
Yeah.
When we're in heaven, we're a part of this whole soul family. And so sometimes you write your contract, you do your contract with your soul family. And you're supposedly, this is what I've learned from a near-death experience story that I've read, is that you might come back to Earth, but my daughter might have been my great-grandmother, but she's come back as my daughter, but she at one point in time been my great-grandmother that I never knew. So that's, we have contracts with our soul family. There's a lot to that, I know, so.
Yeah, that's actually very common. They will skip a generation or two,
Right.
so the grandparent that dies will come back as the grandchild or the great-grandchild.
Right,
That's real
thank
common.
you for, substantiating that. for me. I was looking out at the group going, and they were going, no. Mike,
Can I say one more
Yeah.
thing? Well, I've had something amazing happen. And you may have been, but I wouldn't have. Yes. That's why I believe it.
Yeah.
But all the rest of them, they've been like, that.
Yeah.
That's one place I think it's comfortable when I am.
no, you're not,
That doesn't matter.
and we're glad you're here, because you know, it's a process for a lot of people. They've forgotten where they came from. They've forgotten that they were in heaven and they come here. It's like we have amnesia. And so what we're here, all of us are doing, is reminding each other of what it was. So you're in the right place. You really are. and you're not crazy. You're one of the light. You're now going to be able to move forward and talk to more people, and whether they believe you or not is up to them. That's their problem. Your purpose, though, you were sent back for a purpose, and that was to tell your story. And that's why I encourage everyone that's had a near-death story, experience, put it in writing. Whether you publish a book or not, put it in writing, and maybe the book will get published at some point in time, and that will be shared with thousands more than you can do one-on-one. So I do encourage people to do that. Sandra's done that. Serena's doing that. I'm encouraging Lyman to do that. You need to get it in writing and get it published, just like David's educating all of us on all of these near-death experiences that he's learned about and heard about. So if you've had a near-death experience and you would like to be a speaker at our IANS meetings, please let me know, and we can get you on 2025 calendar. We've already filled up 2024. So, you know, word of mouth has gone out there, and I've manifested it. And speakers are coming back to me. David's come back a second time. We've had multiple speakers come back a second time, and they're reaching different people each time. But I'm very thankful for that. So if you want to start out in a small, loving, I think we're a loving group. I want you to try to hear, and then you can get on a speaker's schedule and go to other IANS groups and start telling your story there. And what's so nice, Mike, is then you have like-minded, I call them open-minded, open heart people to talk to. So that's okay.
Again, I was once like them, but I can't figure out how somehow
One at a time. When I was teaching reading, I complained to my dad. I had fourth graders reading on the first grade level. And I complained and I said, Daddy, I just don't know how I can get through to them. They're all reading at first grade level, and they're in fourth grade, 10 years old. Couldn't even recognize their name. And he said, just one child at a time. So that's my advice, one person at a time. We went from, this group was like 4, 5, 6 people. Look at us now. You know, I am manifesting that one day we'll be in the stadium. And you will all be on the front row. Well, anyway, we've got to load up and pack up and get out of the library right now. So I'm so happy you came. I hope you'll come again and again, and have a great Sunday evening. Thank you.
I also wanted to remind everybody